Hi guys, Walaman here, and welcome to your 8th episode of Adaptive, the video show for disabled gamers. So today I'm going to be talking a little bit about how a gaming mouse can be a huge benefit to you as a player. Whether or not you play with one hand. I personally play with one hand, so I actually feel like a gaming mouse is essential to my gameplay. And you know, there's varying degrees of that, obviously. It's not black and white. But I feel like a gaming mouse used properly can help a player by leaps and bounds over what they have with just a keyboard. Especially if you're comparing to just a keyboard, a mouse as just a regular mouse is very useful, but then a gaming mouse is kind of a whole nother level. So the two mice that I'm going to be talking about today are the Razer Naga and the Logitech G600. I personally vastly prefer the G600 due to a variety of reasons. But I'm still going to talk about the Naga. It's very popular, and I understand why it's popular. And part of that, I would say, a lot of that has to do with just name brand, of just people know what Razer. Razer has this name of just being good with computer stuff, and a lot of people are kind of off put by Logitech, which it's fine. But I personally think this mouse is a really great product, and I would easily choose the Logitech G600 myself, and that's actually what I do. I have both in my house, and I use the G600. Both of these mice cost $60, so they're a little expensive. It's something that would definitely be taken into account over, say, a $15 mouse, just something little just to mess around with. But I think, especially if you're a player with, who plays with one hand or has some, any kind of physical disability that makes gaming difficult, I think it's really essential to have a gaming mouse. So I'm gonna kind of briefly compare the two mice. I think they're very similar. I would say in the comparisons that I'm gonna make and the things that I've noticed, the Logitech kind of wins out. So I'm gonna start with the Naga because of that. So the Naga is smaller. You might have seen when I was showing it earlier. I've got very big hands, so I personally end up having my ring and pinky finger hanging off of the Naga. It has what I always refer to as a cell phone keypad on the side. It's 3x4, 1, 2, 3 goes across the top, 4, 5, 6 here. There's a little kind of ridge on the one button. I can't even find it. This is one of the problems I have with the Naga is it's hard to differentiate where you are on the mouse without actually looking. So then it has these two extra buttons here and here, and then the scroll wheel. The Logitech has a lot of it's got these buttons here. It's got, hold on, sorry. Instead of in the upper left, they're here and here, those two buttons. The scroll wheel actually tilts left and right pretty easily. And then it's got this key, the G shift key, which is something I'm going to be talking about a lot because I think it is immensely useful. So the big difference that I kind of showed it briefly, but I'm going to go ahead and bring it up again to show, is the G600 has these keys, and I'm not sure how well you can see it, but there's a very noticeable there's two valleys made out of your 12 buttons there. They're all curved away from the edges and away from the middle, so that you kind of have these two valleys that are created. So you can very easily tell just by putting your finger on the mouse where you are on that keypad, which is a problem I had with the Naga all the time. I'd constantly be looking down at my mouse trying to figure out where I was, and I found that was a huge problem. And the Logitech has really helped fix that. So I think that's probably the biggest reason even over the G shift key, why I actually went out and got the Logitech. I actually saw Lore, who's actually just about to join Blizzard if he hasn't already. He made that announcement a couple weeks ago. Who's been a big staple of the WoW community. He actually did his review of the G600, which I'll find a link to it and put it down in the description of this video. So this mouse is it's got that, which is really nice. The one downside is if you've got issues with arthritis, the buttons are a tiny bit hard to press, but not noticeably so. At least for me, I'm a strong, my right hand is overly strong. I do if I use my weaker left hand, I do actually have issues pressing the buttons. So I could definitely understand where that could cause problems for people. So that's the one thing you might want to look out for. But I think if you're having problems pressing the Logitech buttons, you're going to be having problems pressing the Razer buttons as well. I'm actually just sitting here feeling them as I'm talking. Yeah, they're not that much harder to press. I wouldn't say it's anything to be game breaking. So then finally what I'm going to explain is the G-shift function. I'm going to explain it in terms of how, I'm going to explain the mouse in terms of how its default keybinds work a bit. I'm not going to go super into depth, but essentially what this key here does, the G-shift key, you'll notice it's next to these two keys, so it's a third mouse button. What it does is when you hold that down, the control pad like buttons, the your cell phone keypad that I keep calling it, become, instead of 1 through equals, they are now control 1 through equals, which is already, for a lot of people who just use the keyboard, already a really common key binding setup, and it's something that's really, really easy to set up, which is really nice. And then there's a couple different things that I do with the mouse too. What I've done is the left and right scroll wheel can be bound to strafing. You can either press scroll wheel down to run forward, or you could toggle that to auto run. Either way, then you can have the movement in your mouse. The one button, if I press it here, the G5 button, so it's the top of these two buttons, changes the setting. So first of all, you'll notice that the lights change. And what this does is this can be set up as a completely different key binding setup. It can be completely unrelated, and so that's something, if you actually want to, you can use what I believe I have it set to is I've got numpad keys, 1 through just equals. I don't actually end up using the last two buttons. I have just 1 through equals on the numpad. Your computer reads those differently. I know when you're typing, you might not think of them as being different, but the computer reads those differently from the standard action bar buttons that everyone uses. So I actually have a second, or really it's a third and a fourth action bar bound to the second setting. And I experimented for a little bit with messing around with things on the third setting. It just became so convoluted that I found it easiest just to have the essentially four action bars, which is very similar to what a lot of people have going on in WoW. Already standard. They have, one action bar, the standard action bar, and they generally have 3 or 4 extras. So I went with 4 because it's just, otherwise you have to juggle between, okay, what setting am I on, which setting is next, etc. I find it easier just to juggle between 2. So then that gives you access to right there, just juggling between 2 with the G shift functionality gives you access to a 48 keybinds on the 12 times 4, 48 keybinds with your thumb. You could have it be 3 or 4 more, depending on how you want to set it up. For on with the top buttons, you can even have the mouse clicks be different, but if you're using it as a mouse, you probably want to keep those as mouse buttons. And the same with the scroll wheel, you probably want your scroll wheel to still do scroll wheel stuff. So I keep that the way it is, but the G the G7 button, which is the bottom of the tube down here, can be run into like a long cooldown or something like that. Or it can be, or it can be used as like a 13th button on your action bar, which I think is really great. So now I've sat here, I've rambled for 10 minutes about a mouse. Hopefully I've made you want to buy it in some sort of way. It's, I guess Logitech is kind of getting free money here. I'm not being paid at all to do this. I'm doing this because I like this mouse and because I believe that it's really the best thing for me to be using. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed the video and learned a little bit of something. And if you guys disagree with me, if you guys all love the Naga, feel free to shout out in the comments. Tell me I'm wrong. I'm not afraid of being wrong. This is my personal opinion. I've used, if you count up, I spent about a year using the Naga, and I've used the G600 for the last like 3 months, and I vastly prefer the G600, and that's my opinion. I'm gonna stick with it. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed this episode. I'll catch you guys next week on Adaptive, the video show for disabled gamers. So thanks guys, and see you later. You can email me at adaptivegamer@gmail.com or Walaman@theadaptivegamer.com. And obviously, if you're watching this on YouTube, check out our site at theadaptivegamer.com. Thanks, guys, and I'll catch you next week.